Good afternoon, everyone. It's Pablo Zuanic, Cannabis Equity Analyst at Zuanic & Associates. I have the pleasure of introducing the CEO of OrganiGram Holdings, Beena Goldenberg, and the CEO of Sanity Group, Hansel. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a lot to cover, and the idea here, we will discuss, of course, OrganiGram, Sanity Group, the opportunities overseas, the opportunities in North America. But let's start with an introduction from both companies. I'll start with Beena, you first, about, state of your company, strategy, big picture. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Pablo. So really just to start off with OrganiGram, we've been in business for 10 years. First, obviously, in the medical business in Canada, medical cannabis, and then now for 5 years in the recreational side. We're a top 3 national market share player, a top 3 licensed producer, and we're a top 3 in multiple segments, so flower and edibles and concentrates and pre-rolls. We have one of the strongest balance sheets amongst LPs. We have pro forma cash of about 170 million Canadian dollars and negligible debt. We have 3 state-of-the-art facilities with the largest indoor grow 3-tier facility that produces our high-quality cannabis flower, about 85,000 kilograms a year. And then we have a highly automated edibles facility that does about 4 million gummies per month, and a craft and hash facility as well. We're distributed across Canada and all provinces. We're a top 5 player across all provinces in Canada, and we export to markets, Israel, Australia, UK, and Germany, and in Germany to the Sanity Group, so we'll talk about that later. We have US exposure through 2 strategic investments, one with Phylos Bioscience, which we did about a year ago, which got us access to seed-based cultivation, as well as whole flower-derived THCV. And more recently, an investment in Open Book Extracts, which is in the hemp derivative space in the US. Obviously, our EU exposure is with Sanity Group, which we'll talk about further. And finally, just a general message around our focus as a company. It's really on innovation. We've had several first-to-market innovations. We were first to launch milled flower, first with RIP strip hash, the whole flower-derived THCV. We were first with ingestible extracts in the Canadian marketplace. And what makes us unique is our strategic investor in BAT. BAT first invested in OrganiGram back in 2021, March of 21, and spent $220 million to take a 20% equity position in the company. And with that, we also agreed to a joint product development collaboration, which was $68 million funded equally by us and BAT to develop this center of excellence in our Moncton facility to focus on next generation cannabis products, really developing IP, doing some more research on cannabinoids, bioavailability, sort of fundamental research, so that we could develop IP that would become a competitive advantage for us long term. Most recently, announced just November of this past year, BAT did a follow-on investment, which is a unique position in cannabis, because very few original investors, strategic investors, did a follow-on investment. They took a larger stake in OrganiGram, and with a $125 million investment, of which 2/3 of that investment we've set aside for a strategic investment pool that we've named Jupiter. And this was about investing to get outside of Canada and expand our international presence. Our first inaugural Jupiter investment was with Open Book Extracts in the US back in the spring. But our largest and our second investment for our Jupiter was with the Sanity Group, which we're very excited about. And with that, I'll turn it over to Finn to talk a little bit more about the Sanity Group.
Yeah, thank you, Beena. And of course, Beena, I have to say on my side, I mean, congratulations on the significant progress the company has made since you became CEO. So Finn, please go ahead.
Yeah, so we're the Sanity Group. I founded the company together with my co-founder in 2018. So we are approximately 6 years in the market now. As of today, we are one of the leading German medical cannabis companies, most likely one of the top 2 or top 3 companies in the market. And what makes us unique and made us unique from the beginning is that we saw cannabis as a holistic field to play in. So we don't only do medical cannabis, we also do CBD and wellness products, which we started with in Germany already in 2018. And just recently, last year, we launched our recreational pilot project in Switzerland, which makes us a bit unique because we're the only company yet participating in the Swiss pilot project, and especially the only German player playing this in this market. We are about 100 employees in 3 different locations. Our headquarters is based in Berlin, Germany. That's where basically all the functions are, where basically all operations sit. We have extraction facility and logistics hub and GMP hub in Frankfurt, which we basically own since 3 years, where we're actually doing logistics right now, but also product development, which is also very close to our heart. And our third location is the city in the canton of Basel in Switzerland, where we're currently running 2 dispensaries in the Swiss pilot project, where we basically participate in the government's pilots to scientifically sell cannabis to consumers recreationally. What's special about that project is it's not like in Canada where you have dispensaries and you just sell the cannabis. This is really like together with a research institution, in our case, the University of Zurich, where we basically sell cannabis. We actually ask the participants of the pilot project every 6 months of how they feel, what they want to do, and we look what their product preferences are. Based on that, we actually write reports that we then send to the Swiss government, and the Swiss government basically takes our reports and the one of the other 6 pilot projects to then decide about the legalization federally of recreational cannabis in Switzerland, which we mostly believe will be probably happening end of 2025, beginning of 2026. What our core is as of today is we are basically a branded player in the market. So we import cannabis from all over the world. We don't have our own cultivation. We just process in our Frankfurt facility. So we import cannabis from all over the world in different dosage forms and then bring it to the market under our own brand, which is Boies, which is among the top 2 or top 3 of the German medical cannabis market. We currently have a market share of around 10 to 15% in flowers. So that makes us one of the leading companies. And also one thing we share with OrganiGram is not only the love for product innovation, because obviously that's a very big focus for us, because product innovation, we believe, will make the difference in cannabis in the long run. But also what we share is a common investor, British American Tobacco, who invested into us in the Series A a few years ago. And when you look into not only being leading from a markets or from a company size perspective, where we believe we are in the top 3, we're definitely also the leading company in terms of like probably the cap table strength of not only OrganiGram and BAT, but also a lot of European venture capital companies having been on board very much from the beginning. But also our cash position is probably uncomparable to in the German or the European medical cannabis market. We are not only in Germany. I already mentioned Switzerland as being our recreational market, but with CBD, we are present in probably 6 European markets. With medical cannabis, we're currently present in 4 European markets, but that's also something that we want to expand. We call ourselves not a multi-state operator, but a multinational operator. So within Europe, we really have the objective to become the market leader in cannabis across all relevant countries. So we are already present in Czech Republic. We are present in the Switzerland. We are very soon present in the UK, and we're also present in Poland. So that's also our strategic objective, to see Germany being the biggest cannabis market in Europe as of now. So that's obviously our focus, but also looking into the other markets to see which attractive markets are coming up and where we can actually play.
Thank you very much for that, Finn. Look, I mean, we have obviously a lot to cover, and we'll go into the details, especially Europe. But just one follow-up thing for you. So you talked about you had several suppliers for your business in Europe. Were you also importing from OrganiGram before this deal between the 2 companies?
Yes, yes.
Right.
We have about 15 international suppliers from Canada, Uruguay, Colombia, South Africa, Portugal, and a few other countries. But we built a very trusted relationship with OrganiGram since last year. So I would say probably OrganiGram is very fastly developing or very quickly developing as being our biggest supplier. And that's also one of the reasons that made OrganiGram very attractive for us, because we believe that the product that they offer to the market is a very good one.
Right. Thank you. So Beena, let's concentrate on Europe. First of all, talk about the opportunity, how you see the growth opportunity in Europe, if you can size it up, and then discuss what you had done in Europe before this transaction with Sanity Group. Let's start with that, and then of course we'll follow up with the Sanity transaction. Thanks.
Sure. So first of all, we find Europe is a very exciting opportunity. Unlike the US, which is complicated because we have our NASDAQ listing and you can't sell into the US market. Europe is a market that we currently sell into through our export business. We produce high quality flower in our Moncton facility, and we already sell, as Finn said, to Sanity Group in Germany. We sell to 2 different customers in the UK, and we're looking to expand and diversify. We're talking to customers in the Czech Republic and in Poland. So it's a great market for us to get our product into. Right now, it's mostly flower, and we are working on our EU GMP certification so that we can sell directly into Europe, because right now we're just selling GACP flower that needs to be converted. So we hope to be EU GMP certified. We're ready for the audit. So as soon as the auditor decides to show up, we'll look forward to that. So we're already shipping, but what really is interesting with this investment in Sanity is to actually have a foothold there and work side by side with Sanity to evolve, like sell into more countries and leverage their relationships, their distribution networks, and provide them some of the IP that we've developed. And bring some of that new technology into the market. And at some point in the future, like we have some know-how in production. If there's ever a point in the future that there needs to be domestic supply, we have a great knowledge on how to produce product indoor, even with the seed-based production. So it's just sharing technology and building this relationship for long-term growth. We love the first mover advantage. And the fact that Germany, is going to be there. Most of the other European countries are going to watch Germany and watch how they unfold, how their regulations unfold, and it'll be like a domino effect. And we really think that this is something that is exciting and that we could work with Sanity on leveraging that first mover advantage.
Right. So Beena, maybe just expand on that point, and obviously you touched on it, but just, among the many operators in Germany, why did you choose Sanity? And also maybe remind us of the structure of the transaction. Thanks.
Yes, absolutely. So as Finn said, what we have in common is a strategic investor. BAT invested in Sanity after they invested in OrganiGram. And BAT has an ecosystem of companies that they've invested in. We've known Finn and his team. We've been able to connect with them before, so you develop that relationship and sharing information. So it was an easy decision, having known them for a while, having shipped already, selling them through our supply agreement, to get in with Sanity. We love the fact that they had the pilot test in Switzerland, so that gave access to sort of the recreational side. They're number 2 player in flower with their Avi brand. And they have a great distribution network. So it became an obvious partner to look at, to invest in, and to build together and leverage it. So that's how we chose Sanity. In terms of the investment itself, just as a reminder to everybody, it was originally a $14 million euro investment. 11.5 million was through an unsecured convertible note, and then 2.5 million was to purchase equity interest in the Sanity Group from founders and other shareholders. As part of that, we have a board seat with Sanity Group and the option to advance them another 3 million euros. And that option is based on achieving certain objectives that we've set forward. So we're very excited about this and of the investment that we've put in.
Good, thank you. So Finn, maybe just digging deeper here in terms of describe your operation in Germany specifically, and I know you touched on it. Which parts of the value chain do you operate? How could that change in the future? How vertically integrated you are, and also plans for the rest of Europe?
Yeah, I mean, so we don't do cultivation. That's number one. I think everyone knows that, because we believe that at the moment, especially in Germany and Europe, the regulatory environment is so unclear that we don't really know, do we have to grow in Germany in the long run? Can we continue importing? So from our perspective, it didn't make sense to invest in cultivation historically. But what we believe, it's very important to cooperate with strong cultivators, for example, OrganiGram. So this part is something where we don't cover production ourselves, but we work semi-exclusively or exclusively with the best cultivators in the world, may it be Canada, may it be Uruguay, or all the other countries. But what we are really good at, I think, is picking the right product for the German market, market it under our brand, and then bring it directly to the doctors and patients and having good relationships with the pharmacies. So if you think about the value chain from really production to understanding the patient or the recreation of the customer, I think we are really starting at the point where we are probably experts in what kind of products do we believe will succeed in the market, what kind of products are needed in the market, bringing those products under an attractive brand into the German market, and really like convincing patients, doctors, and pharmacies to use our product. I think that's what made us successful in the past. So historically, we, for example, didn't do telemedicine because for us, it was not really a focus before the reclassification of cannabis as a non-narcotic. So now we are looking into telemedicine. So what we really do is we really want to move forward in the value chain and really having the closest relationship to the patients, doctors, pharmacies, and in Switzerland, the customers who participate in the pilot project as much as possible. And that's the reason why I think we are perfectly like matching with OrganiGram, who from a Canadian perspective has a massive advantage in having great product, obviously also great brands in Canada, but understanding the customer and bringing that product to the German customer or patient is actually something where we play in, where we're good at. And that's the reason why I also think this match with OrganiGram and us is a very good one.
Right. And you said that you were doing EU GMP yourselves in Germany. Is that what you said?
Yeah, so we have two, at the moment, two routes. We actually have an EU GMP facility in Frankfurt that we're currently building out. So we can already do a few operations there, EU GMP, not everything, but we also have an exclusive hub in Portugal that is a EU GMP hub where, for example, if we receive product as of now, for example, OrganiGram is not EU GMP qualified yet. We are working very hard on it. But in the meantime, until they're EU GMP qualified, we route them either via Portugal, where we do the final processing steps like trimming, curing, drying, before they then go into the German market. Or in other cases, we go directly via our own facility in Frankfurt to bring the product into the market. So we have an EU GMP there, but we're not growing, we're just processing.
Right. In terms of feet on the ground, can you talk about, your sales force, your ability to deal with doctors, with pharmacies to promote your products? What can you do? Just give us some sense of that.
Yeah, so as of today, we do have probably one of the largest sales forces in the country talking to doctors. So that means we educate doctors every single day, having appointments, telling them about the therapeutical impacts positively on medical cannabis. So we have about 10 to 15 people in the market that talk to doctors and pharmacists every day. We have some key account managers who talk to larger accounts like hospital chains, where we strongly believe that there's huge potential going forward. If you, for example, see Israel, every hospital there already has medical cannabis as a therapy option. We are far away from that in Germany, but we're building that out. Plus, what we're also having is we have a strong team that's focusing only on telemedicine platforms, because we believe that telemedicine is at the moment the biggest driver in the German market. And that's also something that we look into ourselves very intensively, because we have very close relationships with already some partners in the telemedicine space, but we actually want to build it out because we believe a good telemedicine offering is probably the key to grow the German market, which I think in the next 1 to 2 years can be probably 10 times bigger than it is right now.
Right. And you said that you want to expand into telemedicine also. Does that mean that you would set up your own virtual clinics or?
So at the moment, that's a project we are looking into. So either we partner deeper with the existing telemedicine platforms we're currently working with, or we decide on building out our own telemedicine strategy. But at the end of the day, the reclassification of cannabis is just 3 months ago in Germany. So we need to see how the market is developing. And based on that, it's a classical make or buy decision. We will see of how we can develop. However, we definitely want to play strongly in the telemedicine field and have a lot of strategic options there.
Right. Thank you. So look, I mean, before I go back to Beena, Finn, if you can share any metrics in terms of people can size you up versus competitors, right? We hear about the domestic producers, right? That, Demecan, obviously Aurora Tilray, they also import. You have, 420 Pharma acquired by Curaleaf, Canna Medical, Cantourage, Canify. There's other suppliers out there. So whatever metrics you can give us to give us a sense of where Sanity Group stacks up versus those peers in Germany.
Yeah, so from a market share perspective, I mean, the flower market is the most relevant market in Germany right now. So in the flower market, we always look at the volume that we are distributing versus the volume that is generally distributed in the market. So obviously we can calculate our market share. At the moment, we are selling around 300 kilograms of our own product into the market. And based on the numbers that we hear from the bee farm about how much amount of flower is generally distributed in the German market, especially from the branded players, we believe our market share is around 15% right now. Over the last 6 months or even the last 12 months, we were able to grow against the trend. So we grew each month probably 10 to 20%, where the overall medical cannabis market was just growing 5%. So we are basically winning market share. And to be honest, it's a private company, so normally it's not very public of how the numbers look like. But I can tell you we are around 2 million euros monthly revenues right now, strongly growing month over month at the moment. So that's a kind of the ballpark where we stand right now. But that already shows you that we are a very sizable company in the German market, because historically not many companies in the German market reach that number of sales, especially not with the domestic market, which is like 95% of our sales.
Understood. And this is a question actually for both, but I'll start with Beena, right? And specifically on Germany. We're hearing a lot of commentary from market players about the growth we've seen from March to now July, right? In terms of patients, in terms of scripts, in terms of volume. What's your feel of when you take the pulse of the market in terms of the growth that you're seeing, Beena, and if there's any, bottlenecks that you want to highlight either on the demand side, on the supplies or the supply side, and how do you see a market progressing to say end of 2025? And when I ask that, I know that in the case of Canada, the focus has been mostly on the recreational side, right? But the medical markets, when I think of the European markets, I look at Pennsylvania, Florida, and I say 3.5–4% of the population are in the program. Wow, the growth would be significant in Germany, given that, it's about, call it 120,000 patients or more, but which is called that, 0.15% of the population. But maybe that's an apples to oranges comparison. But Beena, just give us your more detailed feel of the German market, what's growing, what's the outlook, and what's happening on the ground. Thanks.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Well, I'll share my point of view. A lot of our information on the German market comes from our discussions with Finn and his group. But certainly since the announcement on April 1st, where it was removed, cannabis was removed from the narcotics list, there has been a significant increase, like 30 to 50% increase in the medical prescriptions that have been issued. So we definitely hear of the stigma around cannabis is rapidly declining. You see people very much moving from the illicit market into the medical market. And you're also seeing some of these pricing segments starting to evolve. So, the craft, premium, value. So very similar to what we saw in Canada. Back to your kind of assessment of size, of scale of the market, the way we look at it is the Canadian business, before it turned recreational, so when it was just medical, was about $1 billion in sales. That's Canadian, $1 billion. Germany has about twice the population as Canada, so we expect the medical business to be about $2 billion in sales before it goes fully rec. So we're very excited. It's going to be one of the largest, outside of the US, the largest cannabis markets, and so that makes it very interesting. In terms of, you asked about bottlenecks or red tape. Listen, at the end of the day, what we're hearing is originally, and it was out a lot of noise about the fact that there was backlogs in the pharmacies, the demand came in and they couldn't handle all the scripts that were coming in, which is, again, a good sign that you've got people moving from the illicit market into the medical market now, and the pharmacies are starting to catch up, as I understand it. But perhaps, Finn, you could talk a little bit more about that, because most of the information we're getting is directly from you.
Yeah. I mean, Pablo already summarized it quite well. We believe that at the moment, we have around 200,000 patients in Germany, which equals kind of what you said, 0.15% to 0.2% of the German population. If you look into Israel, that's 1.5%. If you look into Australia, it's approximately 2.2%. If you look into California, it's more than 4%. Where do I see Germany in that context? I believe German doctors are a bit more conservative than North American doctors. I think it's just the way how our health system is structured. So I don't believe that we will go up to 5% of patients within a year or so. I think that's a bit over-exaggerated. However, what I believe is, especially because we see right now, even like healthcare professionals or doctors who are traditional doctors, they prescribe cannabis already much more since April. Since beginning of April. But the drive of the telemedicine platforms is obviously also a big driver. So just to answer your question, we believe the market at least went up 50% since 1st of April. Our own numbers almost doubled since 1st of April. So we believe that we're currently growing stronger than the market, but also the market is growing quite significantly. Where will this end? To be honest, in this market where everyone has been traditionally very bullish, I became a bit more conservative over the last 5 years because, the market unfortunately was always over-promising and under-delivering. So I was notoriously conservative about the outlook, but based on what I see right now, I believe that we can grow, like the market can grow 10x between now and 2 years from now. Because 10x would mean from 0.15% of the population, we go to 1.5% of the population. That's approximately where Israel is today. It's still lower than Australia. It's much lower than the US. However, I see that this is possible. And this would mean that from today onwards, the market will be 10 times bigger in 2 years from now. And if we only believe that, for example, Sanity Group grows within that market growth, not even exceeding that market growth, our own revenue numbers could go up from 2 million per month right now to 20 million per month, which means we already would achieve something around 200 million revenues per year. This sounds very big right now, but if you really see about the macroeconomic numbers of where other markets went in what point in time and how Germany is liberal right now. So just to give you an impression, if you order something like a prescription online, you already have the fact that you can have it next day in your mailbox, like 1 day after you basically applied for the prescription. There are even services out there that we're also working with very closely, where you can actually get the delivery within 1 hour after you basically visited the doctor, like virtually. So that is actually much faster than other markets like Australia or Israel are allowing, where you still have to pick it up physically from the pharmacy. So I believe with that liberal regulation that we have right now, there is basically not a reason why we would believe that we could not at least achieve 1 to 1.5% of the population being patients, let's say, within 2 to 3 years.
Right. So just to stay on that point, a few questions there. But in terms of, you talked about, Finn, before about with the changes in the law, companies may be allowed to apply for local production licenses, right? Maybe for Beena, but how are you thinking about that? Because if this 10 times growth in Germany materializes, maybe companies will need to increase capacity. Will it make more sense to increase the capacity in Canada or other locations versus Germany? How do you think about that? And I know it's too early to say because we don't have the details, but how do you handicap that, Beena, specifically first?
Well, maybe very quickly I start with that because you said the German liberalization. So I don't really believe in German cultivation. What's the reason for that? Is because the electricity cost that we're having, the labor cost that we're having, basically all the costs that we're having, plus the regulation that we're having around cultivating cannabis, will give us always a competitive disadvantage compared to Canada, but also other markets. So building up local production to satisfy the demand you just described, I don't believe in. And Germany has never been a protective country. Germany has always been a country that likes to export, but also likes to import. And that's the reason why I believe over the next 5 to 10 years, especially for the medical market, this will remain an import market. And if you then look at the Canadian capacities, I mean, just based on the last years, Canadian producers like notoriously produced more than the Canadian market was consuming. I believe that there's a lot of potential, especially for companies like OrganiGram, to not only grow within the Canadian market, but also growing by exporting the excess capacity into the German market.
So just to stay on that point, Beena, so if we're talking about this type of growth in Germany, say 10 times, right? I don't know if the agreement here is exclusivity agreement that Sanity can only buy from OrganiGram or they can buy from other parties, if you can talk about that. But, how are you prepared to face, this exciting growth opportunity in terms of perhaps having to add capacity, or maybe you have idle capacity you can put to use?
So first of all, I'd say, listen, I think, we are very excited about shipping product to Sanity, and part of the agreement increased our commercial, like we had an improved commercial agreement as part of this investment, which means we will ship more of our product, but it is not exclusive. Already Finn has supplies, as he's mentioned, from other suppliers. And, when you're dealing with medical patients, they have something that works, so you have to keep supplying them. So we didn't have an exclusive arrangement, but we certainly had an increased commercial relationship, which will allow us to ship more product. We continue to have opportunity in Canada to grow more product. We have not just extra cultivation. We have another site in Quebec, but we also can continue to get better turns and more efficiency. So there's upside potential out of our facility to meet some of the demand. I think about a year and a half ago, when there was discussion in Germany about recreational legalization happening, and there was talk about the need for production in Germany. At that time, we were having conversations with Sanity Group, and we said, listen, if the regulations evolve that way, we have a strong understanding of how to cultivate, how to grow. We've learned the hard way, as most Canadian licensed producers did. We know how to do this, and especially now with our understanding of seed technology, there are ways that we can support through our know-how if there is such a regulation down the road with requiring production in Germany. But if not, we'd love to be able to continue to supply and export out of our markets. And in Canada, there was too much capacity. A lot of facilities have been shuttered. There's lots of opportunity to build new or add more capacity as required. I think it just grew too quickly, and then at the end of the day resulted in too much oversupply and price compression. I actually think what Germany is doing is a much more it's a slower rollout. You've got a lot of companies who saw what Canada went through, and obviously there isn't as much capital available either than there was when Canada went legalized. So I think there's an opportunity for Germany to evolve differently, not to have overcapacity, to keep pricing a little bit higher, and continue to take quality export from around the world.
And in terms of the no exclusivity clause, does that work both ways? Like in your case, Beena, can you supply other companies in Germany or only Sanity?
Yeah, no, it works both ways. And look, we'd love to supply more to Sanity, but we're already supplying other customers in the UK, and you heard Finn talk about selling to the UK, and we'll continue to looking at that. We do provide exclusive strains So we want to make sure that when we give Sanity, it's something that they could leverage across all their markets. And as we introduce other customers, we will look at specific strains for them. So we're doing that to make sure that not only do we have good relationships with all of our customers, but that, you know, we have the exclusivity where they could make a differentiation for themselves.
Yeah. And for those listening out there, you know, here we are, you know, more than half an hour into the call of the time. And we spent half of the time on the European markets, right? And I have to be honest, it's something that probably with OrganiGram wouldn't have come to mind first, maybe 2 years ago, right? Our focus would have been in the domestic market. So it just shows the opportunity for the company without a doubt. Look, before we move into other things, just one last question on Germany for you, Finn. Your quick thoughts in terms of the impact from decriminalization, right? When we saw decriminalization in Manhattan led to, you know, many illegal stores. So we worry about that sometimes. Home growth, you know, could that be a problem? The social clubs that just began. How do you think about that as a risk or not an issue?
Well, to be very honest, I believe in coexistence. So that means people who have a medical indication should go to a medical supply chain. And that's where we come into play. People who are enthusiasts and they want to like create small groups of people where they grow cannabis together to basically try out the new strains and want to like foster their agricultural talent. I'm very happy for them to do so, but I really believe it's two completely different markets. So I really believe that the club legalization in Germany will not be a mass phenomenon. I think it will be a few ones that probably will deliver good quality to the club members. But if you know something about the Germany regulation, you will see that the way how clubs are legalized in Germany is very bureaucratic. So we don't really believe that anyone will be able to deliver flower to the market before Q1 next year. And then you can only have 500 members per club. They only can get limited product. Plus the fact that basically, as I said, the whole production cost in Germany, they will not go away just because it's a club. So it will also remain an expensive product for German comparison. So I really think that, and I'm very happy for the club runners that they will run clubs that actually can share and like trade cannabis together, that can grow cannabis together. I'm also happy for the people that grow at home, that they actually next to tomatoes and cucumbers can now also put a cannabis plant. However, I believe it will always remain a niche compared to the rest. And that's the reason why one last thing we didn't talk about yet is very interesting for us. So to answer your number one question, no, I believe there will be no cannibalization. I will believe that people will always look for medical quality products that come from cultivators who know exactly what they do. For example, OrganiGram, and that's the reason why I think their product will always have a big role in the market, especially the medical one. But then one thing that we are very excited about is that Germany looks like going ahead with a so-called pilot project. So I mentioned in the beginning, we're the only company running a Swiss pilot project right now. So obviously we have the blueprint of how to run pilot projects. We just had like a lot of encounters with the German government that they plan to basically start German pilot projects before the end of the year. So, and obviously with us having the Swiss blueprint in our experience, and in our skill set, we probably are in the pole position to run German pilot projects. And from what we know from the German government is that they will allow import for those German pilot projects. So it means that hopefully, if everything goes well, by Q1 next year, we have commercial stores in big German cities that can actually bring Canadian products for recreational purposes into the German market. And that's obviously something that, if it really happens, which is not part of our business plan as of now, will also be a huge difference. And then I believe basically we will compete with clubs or home grow in that sector. But I strongly believe that not everyone who wants to buy cannabis will become member of a club. They then rather go into a commercial dispensary.
So before we move on, in terms of pilot two, I mean, I'm not to push back, right? But at Cannabis Europe, I think the consensus view was that it wouldn't happen in 2025. But obviously, you sound a lot more optimistic about it. But can you expand on that? Because obviously, if it does, if you're right, it would be great. Yeah.
So to be honest, first of all, I think there's almost no company in Germany that does as much public affairs than we do. So I don't want to say that we know much more than everyone else, but I mean, we have a close dialogue to the government. And what we hear is what you said, the so-called Pillar 2, to create another law that is regulating pilot projects in cannabis. I fully agree with the consensus on Cannabis Europa. This will not happen because there's just not enough time left between now and the next election to really instate a new law and develop it. However, what the German Ministry of Agriculture and Food announced 2 months back is that they want to actually launch an enactment. So it means we don't need a new law, but based on the law that was already implemented, the so-called Pillar 1 of decriminalization that is regulating how cannabis can be used, how cannabis can be handled, how cannabis can be owned. The only thing that needs to be regulated on top of that will be the question of how can cannabis be given to people who use it. And the consensus in the German government right now is that we don't need additional law for that, but an enactment of a ministry is enough to do that. And there's already a draft enactment currently circulating around within the German cannabis associations to get feedback, including us. So we also gave feedback to the enactment. And what we hear right now is that if the enactment goes through, it will probably be end of July, beginning of August, depending on how long the summer break in the German parliament will be. But we believe that we can basically apply for pilot projects based on that enactment as early as September this year. And I think that would, if that really comes, again, it's not part of our business plan yet, but if that really comes, it would be a huge game changer. Sure. Because it means that you don't need a second law, but you can basically use the foundation that you created through the existing law and create cannabis pilot projects based on that, because there's a so-called experimental clause, similar to Switzerland, in this Pillar 1 of the law that will basically be enough legal foundation to create pilot projects.
Yeah, definitely something I have to keep an eye on. So Beena, let's move the discussion now to the Jupiter Fund. I think obviously people are familiar what you've done there. You talked about 2 investments. I guess the first question would be, what's next? I mean, is the Jupiter Fund done for the time being, or how much more capital do they have to deploy? Could they invest, for example, in US MSOs, or because you are NASDAQ listing, they can't? Just talk about, you know, what may be next for the Jupiter Fund, how much capital left to deploy, and, you know, what are the guardrails, or how far can you go?
Yeah, absolutely. So the original fund was set up of $83 million Canadian. We've spent so far about 25 million. So we have 2/3 of the investment still to invest. So there's still runway there. In terms of what we're looking for, you know, we will look at the US. As you saw, we did open book extracts. That was in North Carolina. So strategic investment. You're right. We have to be very careful that we're doing whatever investment we do in the US has to be compliant with our NASDAQ and our TSX listing. So, but we've seen other peers of ours, Canopy and Sundial, have found ways to structure investments in US MSOs in a way that's compliant. We've actually watched what they're doing, happy to let them do all the legal work and then understand it. The reality is it hasn't been a great advantage to be a first mover in cannabis. It's kind of good to sit and watch and see how people figure it out. But we are very interested in the US market, and a good chunk of the remaining funds will be spent in the US market. What we're looking for is the ways that we could structure it that work for us. One of the unique features of our investments typically is that we don't like to do passive investments, which are basically we give money and we walk away and we hope for the future. We'd like to do things where there is a benefit to the Organigram business. As with the Sanity Group, there was the commercial agreement that we were able to negotiate as part of that investment. And with the open book extracts, it was about leveraging their formulation ability to perhaps launch some of our IP and our brands into the US market through the hemp derivative space. Wow. So that, I will say, the hemp derivative space is interesting in the US because with the loophole, it allows us to be compliant. We've done some homework behind it to make sure. Now, understanding that there's the Miller Amendment out there and we have to watch it and understand what happens with that, but we're watching it carefully. It's not surprising that the US investments, so our Jupiter investments in the US have taken a little longer. It's why, you know, we were able to do the German investment faster because it's a little bit more complicated, but we are definitely looking at the US and what is the right strategy there. We've identified several pillars of what we want to do in the US market. And again, where we could basically see a benefit to the Canadian business is something that we'll explore.
Right. And look, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. So and I'm sorry to repeat the question, but you're saying that if you can find the right structure and the proper guardrails, the Jupiter Fund could potentially invest in an MSO. Because, Scotts Miracle-Gro with RIV Capital, they did the deal with Consortium, and of course, before we attain, and you mentioned, of course, SNDL and Canopy Growth. So your short answer is that, yes, you will be looking at that, and you're confident you may come out with a structure that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Okay, that's very clear. And in the case of hemp derivatives, again, very clear your answer. Just remind us, why was open extracts the right alternative? You have companies like LFTD Partners and other large hemp derivatives companies there, although, of course, it is a fragmented market. Why were the right partner for Jupiter?
Right. So again, what we liked about open book extracts is that they are formulators of product, and we're very excited about launching some of the products and some of the IP that we've developed through our product development collaboration. And we're able to leverage them. They could help us develop the products, formulate them, and we could launch our brands through that, producing it there, right? Obviously, we can't produce in Canada and sell into the US, so we need a production source there. And what we really like, we like the guys there over at Open Book Extracts. We think that there is, we're actually looking at doing some research with them on efficacy testing and formulation testing. That is research. We're doing a lot of research in Moncton and in our facility, but there's ingredients that we're not allowed to include with cannabis that you can in the US and in these hemp derivative spaces, things like melatonin or the different types of functional benefits in addition to cannabis. Mm-hmm. So we really like the fact that they're going to work with us on the research, efficacy, and help develop the formulas that we think will be able to capitalize on our IP and really launch differentiated products into the marketplace.
Can you give just some rough metrics in terms of the size of open book extracts? Like, how wide is their distribution sales? I don't know how much you can share.
Right. So they have multiple parts of their business. They're predominantly an ingredient supplier. So they produce the product that goes out. They do some formulation work for finished goods. And so we see the overall size of the business. I would say there's probably sitting in the 20 to 40 million in that range in the US in terms of the different components of their business.
Yeah. And I'm sure I'm not going to go into all in depth here into open hemp derivatives, but there's more and more companies, that are beginning to enter the segment, right? You've heard Curaleaf talked about that. We hear that other MSOs are looking at the segment, so it's not like hands off. And according to some estimates, it's as big as the US cannabis market, right? It's another 30 billion, 60 billion in total. Look, I'm going to read some questions here that we're getting through the feed from Twitter and Zoom. So we'll jump around a little bit, and then, of course, we'll come back to Canada Rec. So Finn, for you first, very, very briefly, is the scope of the agreement with Sanity just about Germany or also for international markets?
No, it's a general agreement, including Germany and potentially other international markets. So again, it's not an exclusive agreement, but obviously with OrganiGram as a strategic partner, we have a strong interest to bring their product into as many markets as possible, maybe also into the Swiss market. So obviously the agreement is a more holistic supply agreement. We're focusing on Germany right now, but it definitely also includes potential in other countries. Right.
And again, just short answer, someone asking me, what % of your sales at Sanity are really cannabis versus CBD? I don't know if you want to, again, only if you want to comment.
Yeah, no, if you would have asked me 3 years ago, I would have said it's 50-50. As of today, it's 93 or 94% to 6%. So 94% are THC sales and 6% are CBD sales.
Understood. All right. And again, for Sanity Group, if you can discuss, Finn, who are your shareholders and do you own investments in other companies?
So our main shareholders, we have a relatively diverse cap table. I mentioned in the beginning that we have a lot of venture capital funds. So the biggest shareholders outside the founders, OrganiGram and BIT, Holzbring Capital or HV Capital. It's the largest German tech VC fund. It's Cherry Ventures. It's the second largest German tech VC fund. It's Red Alpine. It's the biggest Swiss tech VC fund. So historically, based on my history as a tech founder before Sanity Group, I obviously have a large network among tech VCs, and that's the reason why I probably were very heavy on tech VCs. Smaller investors are also, for example, Casa Verde, that probably is very known in the US as a cannabis fund. We also have Navy Capital, that is also an investor in Organigram. It's a North American VC fund focused on cannabis, and Soji Capital as well. So as I mentioned, we have a very diverse portfolio, but also one thing that we are relatively proud about is that we have a lot of celebrities on the cap table that paid the full price. They didn't get a discount, but they were interested in the business model. So for example, will.i.am, the founder of Black Eyed Peas, has a small share. Mario Götze, our big soccer star, who shot the final goal in the 2014 World Cup and made us world champion, has a small stake in the company. They're supporting us along the way, but that's probably not our biggest shareholders, but maybe our most interesting ones.
And on that point, I mean, maybe for Beena, but does OrganiGram or the Jupiter Fund or BAT have a path to take control of Sanity Group? Or that's unclear, that's not said necessarily?
At this point, we have some options to do further investments in the Sanity Group, as I mentioned earlier. And we're just going to see how it goes. I mean, Europe is interesting. Germany is interesting. We certainly have a desire at some point to be a global player in a bigger way, not just in investors. So right. It's something that we'll look at, but there isn't a plan right now. This is going to happen over time.
Right. So Beena, I mean, last but not least, I want to focus on Canada, of course, and your business there again. You know, congratulations, you're a top 3 player there, in some provinces, maybe top 2. But 2 questions coming through a feed. One, someone asking about the state of your business in Israel. Obviously, we have the war there. There's been the dumping accusations. Just brief answer on Israel, and then if you can give any color on Australia in terms of your progress there.
Right. So listen, in 2023, we sold a significant amount of flower to Israel. We have a great relationship with Candoc. But since the Middle East conflict started, we have been on pause. So it has impacted our export sales to Israel, and we are just in a holding pattern. We're waiting to see how things evolve. You're right, there's the anti-dumping investigation. We have done a lot of work with the commissioner to show that there is no reason to believe that there is any dumping. Everybody has been very clear. We make more margin selling internationally than we sell in Canada. Obviously, our excise issues in Canada are very significant. So that's ongoing challenges with Israel. And at this point, we're on pause. But we do have an agreement with Candoc that committed to a certain amount of volume. We're hoping to get it back in action when the right time comes.
Understood. Thank you, Beena. And then just moving to Canada, just discuss, the progress of your business in the Canadian rec market strategy and how have you adapted over the years given the challenges there?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, we're very proud. We've been able to have continued growth in our business, and we've grown our market share. We have over 7% market share, and we've grown it this past year. We're up 0.6 market share points. Our quarter over year ago quarter was up 21% in our recreational business. Really focused on, we got the growth by focusing on pre-rolls, more of the ready-to-consume category, but we automated pre-rolls. We introduced tube-style pre-rolls, infused pre-rolls that helped us. Certainly the biggest gap in our Canadian business is in the vape space. As I mentioned, that is an area where we would look at other M&A opportunities in the Canadian marketplace to fill out that gap in our portfolio. But that's something that we'll continue to look at being a top, we want to be top 3 in all the ready-to-consume categories. Right. And vape is part of that. So that's part of our strategy, and we'll look at M&A to fill that in. And we'll continue to leverage our innovation. And we have a great portfolio of products that we're going to be bringing to market in the next year that are really that are coming out of our product development collaboration. They're things that other people can't copy. We ran a clinical study, a $3 million clinical study to be able to talk about bioavailability and onset and predictable offset. And we've done it under the research requirements that will allow us to make claims. This is something that differentiates us, and it's where Organigram excels. So we're looking forward to some of these new products that we're planning to launch in the next year and continue to grow.
And on those, ready-to-consume products, pre-rolls, you talked about infused pre-rolls, vape. Although you said vape, it's a bit of it's an area where you have room to expand. Is BAT very involved in collaborating and helping you develop products there?
So again, the product development collaboration that was set up in 2021, we both set aside $34 million each. So BAT and Organigram, and it was funded by both of us. And there are BAT employees that are seconded to Moncton that are helping do the research along with Organigram employees. So it is a joint development effort. We have exclusive rights to anything that is developed in Canada, but both companies have the rights to launch that in other markets and any IP that's been developed. So we're very excited. We're working on next generation innovation right now. So the first generation will be launched, and we're working on the next generation. So a joint effort between both companies.
Right. So look, a couple of more questions here in Canada, specifically on flower. Still seems to be a bit of a race to the bottom, right? Even lower prices there. How are you adapting there, or is the focus more on ready-to-consume products right now?
So interestingly, we actually have seen the price compression in Canada has come down. We're seeing a bit of a balancing of supply and demand. Finally, we're seeing the price on B2B flower actually going up a little bit, finally. So that's a good sign. We have to make sure that doesn't, we've already heard some companies adding more capacity. We don't really want to have that excess and continue to drive the bottom down. Our flower business is strong. We're a top 3 player in flower overall and top 1 player and number 1 in milled flower. Flower is a very important component of our business. And, we're a low-cost producer. So despite being fully indoor grow, we're a low-cost producer, and the work that we've been doing both on automation, and now we expect to have seed-based cultivation at 30% of our garden by the end of calendar year 24, means a faster cycle time. Again, we're driving to lower costs, so we are improving our margins on the flower part of our business.
Thank you. I know we're running out of time here. We may go past the hour, but not much. And jumping around a little bit here, in terms of Canada, Beena, do you expect any regulatory changes within the next 2 years? I know we are hoping for some relief on the excise tax. Didn't happen, but what are your expectations, realistic expectations in terms of regulatory changes?
Right. So I think, listen, they put forward the Gazette that was just out, which was a regulatory burden reduction. There was a few small wins there where the ability to add some information on the packaging, QR codes, maybe a window to show your product. Those are good first steps, but it certainly was nowhere near what we were hoping for in terms of the reform. We still have strong advocacy going out to move the dial on the excise tax. That has to be an area. The 10% ad valorem, which was proposed, and we know that it was proposed through the Standing Committee on Finance. It was proposed in the Cannabis Act review. The Competition Bureau brought it forward. There's been a lot of pressure, and yet we didn't see a change with this last budget. There will be continued pressure from the Industry Association. I am a member on the ISED, so that's the Industry and Economic and Science and Development area, and this is a place where we're feeding into the government. These are areas that have to be addressed. So do I expect it'll happen? There will be an election likely in the fall of 25. I don't really expect that anything's going to happen before that, but there will be further industry pressure. You have companies continuing to go into CCAA. A lot of companies have survived this long by not paying their excise and not paying their regulatory fees. We find that totally unacceptable. It's not a level playing field. We want to see everybody having to follow the same rules, and that should force some consolidation in the industry. So we're okay waiting for regulatory reform a little bit, and maybe we'll get the consolidation that the industry needs. before hopefully we will get that reform, the regulations that we need.
Right. Being on a separate question, for those that are not so close to the story, and you mentioned at the beginning, remind us in terms of what BAT owns right now and what's their path, and do they have a path to take control? And I know maybe it's a question more for them, but just a reminder of where that stands right now.
So part of this latest investment, the 124.6 million that we announced in November, it's being paid over in 3 tranches. They had the ability to get to, equity interest of about 45%. Although we did a marketed offering, so it maybe takes them down a few percentage points, but it's not to a controlled position. And at this point, BAT is a UK-based firm. They still have POCA rules, which is Proceeds of Crime Act. They can't get any income from federally illegal products. And as a result, OrganiGram will continue to operate independently with them as just a strategic investor.
Understood. Although in Canada, cannabis is federally legal, right?
Right, but they're a UK-based company, so they can't. So they can invest in us because we're federal, we're in a federally legal market, but they can't take ownership of us and have income that comes in through somebody selling an illegal product. So those are their POCA rules. Is BAT looking at lobbying against those rules? That's their, it's up to them to talk about that. But for us, right now, they have a path to get to, a high 40s max.
Right. And I guess one question for you, Beena, is that when I see, Constellation Brands and Canopy Growth, Altria and Kronos, and here Imperial and Oxley, obviously in the case of BAT and OGI, there seems to be a lot more going on, right? And I'm not trying to criticize anybody out there, right? But Altria Kronos seems to be a bit of a, investment they made, $1 billion, right? But not much has happened, right? So, I mean, I don't want to feel a benchmarking a little bit without criticizing other people, but seems like you guys are in a much better place in terms of this partnership compared to other things we've seen in the space.
Right. So I would say what was different in the investment, the original investment that BAT did, it wasn't solely, here's some money and they walked away. We developed the product development collaboration and they put people in, and that made it a more joint effort. And as a result, we've evolved differently, right? And BAT introduced us to all the members of their cannabis ecosystem. That's where we met the team at OBX. That's where we met Finn and the team at Sanity. And so building differently, and you're right, what makes it different is BAT put a second investment in. You haven't seen that any other time. Right. We didn't get as much money originally, but we had a second investment and we continued to work together. So I think it's a unique position, and really because we're working together on doing the research, the products, and looking at growing and leveraging that IP in other markets.
That's right. Understood. Thank you. That's great. Okay. So look, I know we are past the hour. So closing remarks, Finn, I'll start with you. Whatever comments you want to make here, but for our audience, and thank you. I know it's late for you, 11 p.m.
No, it's all good. It's all good. We are a startup at the end of the day, and a startup also requires longer working hours, so all good. Now, closing remarks. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm extremely happy on how the market is developing right now. I think if you would have asked me 1 year ago, 1.5 years ago, I don't want to say that I lost belief, but I was extremely more conservative than I am right now. I see the KPIs going into the right direction, us achieving profitability very soon, us outperforming the market, growing very strongly together with the biggest players that are besides us in the industry. So at the moment, I really see a very strong traction in the medical market, plus the potential pilot projects where we can import from international markets. So I think it's never been better than right now to invest into the German market. And that's the reason why I'm very happy that Beena and her team trusted us with this investment, because I think now we have a very good combination of topics. We have a very good regulatory environment. We already have a very strong position as one of the leading companies. Now we have the best cash position in the market because of the investment of OrganiGram. Plus, we have a very strong strategic partner in North America right now that we can work together with and align strategies to even further be successful in the market. So I think I'm very happy right now having a strong partner like OrganiGram, very bullish about the next year's development.
Thank you, Finn. Beena, closing remarks, and if you want, pitch your stock, right? I mean, people tend to put all the Canadian companies all in the same bucket, but go ahead. And thank you again for your time.
Absolutely. So first of all, echo what Finn said. We've been watching the German market. We're very excited about the recent developments, and we're very excited about partnering with Sanity and taking advantage of what's evolving in Germany, but also in Europe. So we feel that this is a great opportunity for OrganiGram to get outside of Canada. We're excited about our performance in Canada. We keep improving in our Canadian operation, but we need it to become more global. So I think that is, we're very excited having done this investment. Just in terms of our overall stock, I have a couple of comments to make, which is, listen, OrganiGram stock isn't as volatile as some of the others. We don't go as high on the highs, but we don't go as low on the lows. And when you look at the last 9 months and we look at our share performance indexed against our peer group, the peer group's down 7 and we're up 21. So we've had a strong performance in the last 9 months. We're very happy. I mean, certainly the BAT follow-on investment helped us. Some of the developments in the Canadian market continue. We continue to shine and grow and maintain a strong position. We've got a good stock, and we're very excited about the future and leveraging some of that innovation and really creating a competitive advantage for our shareholders and for our consumers.
That's great. Thank you very much to our speakers, Beena Goldenberg, CEO of OrganiGram Holdings, Finn Hansel, CEO of Sanity Group. Everyone that joined, thank you for joining us today, and everyone have a good day. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Bye.